The fire had burned down to a comfortable glow, the kind that warmed without demanding attention. Orange embers shifted and sighed, sending sparks up into the dark like tiny prayers that never quite made it to the stars.
They had all gone quiet for a moment, 5 women in their 60s sitting in a loose circle, each wrapped in layers and memories. The forest around them felt older than all of them combined, tall pines standing guard the way they always had, silent, patient, uninterested in what time did to people. Someone passed the marshmallows. Someone else laughed softly at nothing in particular. It was Carol who asked the question. "If you could go back in time," she said, poking at the fire with a stick, "just once, where would you go?" The stick snapped, and the sound echoed louder than it should have. A few of them smiled immediately. This was the kind of question meant for campfires, the kind that came out only when the night was deep enough to feel safe. "Oh, that's easy," Linda said. "I'd go back to the summer after sophomore year, before mortgages, before knees that ache when it rains." They chuckled gently. "I'd go back to the day my first child was born," Marlene said. "Even with all the fear, I'd do it again in a heartbeat." Carol nodded. "I think I'd go back to my wedding day, just to see my parents young again, dancing, alive." The fire crackled, as if it approved. Then they looked at her. She hadn't spoken yet. She was holding her mug with both hands, staring into the flames like they might answer for her. "Well," Linda prompted gently, "what about you?" Emily felt the question settle into her chest before it reached her mouth. "I think," she said slowly, "I'd go back to graduation day." There was a pause. "High school?" someone asked. She nodded. "That day exactly." "Why then?" Carol asked. No judgment, just curiosity. She swallowed. "Because," she said, choosing each word carefully, "that's when everything took a turn for the worse. Not all at once, not dramatically, just quietly. Like a road you don't realize you're on until you're too far to turn around." No one interrupted. Firelight softened their faces, made them younger for a moment. "I didn't know it then," she continued. "None of us ever do. But looking back now, that day feels like the last clear fork in the path." The forest shifted. Wind moved through the trees. Someone pulled their jacket tighter. "Well," Linda said finally, forcing a lightness into her voice, "if we're confessing, I need another marshmallow." That broke the spell enough for laughter to return. Emily smiled with them, but the feeling lingered. A chill crept up her arms that had nothing to do with the night air. "I'm going to grab my sweater," she said, standing. "I'll be right back." Her tent was only a short walk away, a dark shape among darker ones. The ground felt familiar under her boots, pine needles soft and forgiving. She unzipped the flap and reached inside, fingers brushing the worn sleeve she always brought. Too warm for daytime, perfect for nights like this. The zipper stuck. She tugged once, twice, and then the sounds changed. The forest fell away, replaced by a low hum. Voices, many of them, close, excited. She straightened, her heart stuttering. The air smelled different, not pine and smoke, but fresh-cut grass and perfume and something metallic. Folding chairs, maybe. Emily stepped back out of the tent. The fire was gone. So were her friends. In their place stood rows of people, faces turned toward a makeshift stage. Banners fluttered overhead, blue and white, the year printed in bold letters she knew by heart, even though she hadn't seen it in decades. Her breath caught. She knew those faces, every single one. There was Carol, laughing too loudly near the aisle, Linda twisting her program the way she always did when she was nervous, Marlene standing with her parents, hair darker, eyes brighter. They were young. Too young. A cheer went up. And her name was called. Her knees weakened. This wasn't a memory. Memories were hazy around the edges. This was sharp. Too sharp. She looked down at her hands. They were different. smoother, unlined. She was wearing a cap and gown, graduation day, exactly as she had said at the campfire. A voice echoed in her mind, her own from moments ago around the fire. That's when everything took a turn for the worse. The applause swelled, and somewhere deep inside her, a quiet, impossible thought took shape. What if this time didn't have to end the same way? The applause faded the way echoes always do, slowly, reluctantly, until it left behind a strange quiet that felt heavier than sound. Emily was sitting now. She wasn't sure when that had happened. A folding chair pressed into the backs of her legs. The program lay folded neatly in her lap, creased the same way it had been all those years ago. Around her, families leaned toward one another, pointing, whispering, smiling with pride. Everything looked exactly right, and yet her heart was racing, because the moment the shock wore off, the knowing rushed in. She knew this day. She knew what came next. She knew the mistakes that would quietly follow her home like shadows that never announced themselves as danger. Her eyes scanned the crowd until she found him. He was leaning against a railing near the back, arms crossed, wearing that familiar half smile that had once made her feel chosen. 2 years together had carved his face into her memory so deeply that even now, decades later, she could recognize him instantly. He lifted 2 fingers in a casual wave. Her stomach tightened. You, she thought. You were the first turn. Emily remembered how long she had defended him, how she made excuses for the smoking and drinking, how she'd told herself that everyone drank, everyone experimented, everyone grew out of it eventually. He'd been smoking since he was 12, drinking since before he could drive. Pot had dulled the edges of his ambition until there was nothing left sharp enough to build a future with. But at 18, she hadn't known how to name that yet. She'd only known how it felt to be wanted. She looked away. The program trembled slightly in her hands. This time, she thought, I could walk away. The idea landed softly, then grew heavier with possibility. Her gaze drifted again, this time to the far edge of the crowd, where her mother stood. Her mother's smile was tight, performed, the kind that never reached her eyes. Even here, on a day meant to celebrate, there was tension in the way her shoulders held themselves, in the way she clutched her purse as if bracing for something to go wrong. She felt it in her chest like an old bruise pressed too hard. Her mother had raised her and her siblings alone, along with a few husbands in and out of the house. She had done her best, but had also carried storms no one had ever taught her how to calm. Bipolar, alcoholic, sharp-tongued when the world felt out of control, screaming fits that came without warning, words that cut so precisely they stayed lodged for years. She could still hear them. You'll never make it without me. You think you're better than me? Don't be so dramatic. She exhaled slowly. This time she thought, I could leave. Not in anger, not in a dramatic escape. Just leave. Get her own place, even something small, somewhere quiet. Go to college, take classes that opened doors instead of closing them, build something that belonged only to her. The idea felt dangerous and thrilling and terrifying. A voice crackled over the loudspeaker calling for graduates to line up. The moment was moving forward whether she was ready or not. She stood on unsteady legs, knowing now, without a doubt, that this wasn't just a memory she was reliving. This was a crossroads, and every choice she had once made was waiting for her again. Walking toward the line of graduates felt like walking into a mirror. Faces she hadn't thought about in decades passed her by, each one carrying a version of herself she no longer was. Laughter rang out too loud. Someone adjusted a cap that sat crooked. Someone else wiped at their eyes. She remembered all of it. But what she hadn't remembered, what she had never known the first time, was how heavy knowledge could feel. Knowing the future didn't feel powerful. It felt fragile. Because now she understood how small decisions became lives. A ride accepted, a phone call answered, A night stayed instead of left. She thought of the boyfriend again, of how easy it would be to slip back into the comfort of familiarity, to believe that love meant loyalty at any cost. You don't have to save him, Emily told herself. You only have to save you. The words startled her with their clarity. Ahead, the stage waited. Behind her, the past pressed close, and somewhere, far away but not unreachable, was the woman she would become, sitting around a campfire, wrapped in a sweater, wishing she could go back. She swallowed. This time she didn't want to wish. She wanted to choose. As she stepped forward, diploma waiting, she felt the truth settle in. Going back wasn't about fixing everything. It was about finally listening to the voice she had ignored the first time, the one that had always known. He found her the way he always did, like it was a given. Waiting near her car, one foot hooked around the curb, as if the future had already agreed with him. When he smiled, it was the same familiar curve, the one that had once felt like safety, simply because it was known. "Hey," he said, "I figured we'd grab some drinks after. Everybody's celebrating." Emily stopped a few feet away. Up close, she noticed things she had learned to overlook the first time, the faint smell of smoke clinging to him, the restless way his fingers tapped against his leg, like stillness made him uneasy. "I'm not going," she said. The words surprised them both. He laughed, just a little. "What do you mean you're not going? It's graduation. Come on." She felt her heart pound, not from fear exactly, but from the unfamiliar weight of choosing something different. "I mean, I'm not going," she said again, more evenly this time. His smile faded, replaced by confusion, then irritation. "What's going on with you today?" he asked. "You've been weird since this morning." She almost apologized. The habit rose up instinctively, ready to smooth things over, ready to make herself smaller so the moment could pass. But she didn't. "I've been thinking," she said, "about what comes next." He shrugged. "Same as always. We'll figure it out." That was the problem. Figure it out had always meant drifting, nights that blurred together, plans postponed, promises softened until they disappeared. "I don't want that anymore," she said quietly. He stared at her. "Don't want what?" "This," she said, gesturing between them. "The drinking, the smoking, waiting around for something to change." He scoffed. "You're acting like I'm dragging you down," she swallowed. "I think you are." The words landed hard. His jaw tightened. "So what? You think you're better than me now? You get a diploma and suddenly you're too good for the rest of us?" "No," she said quickly. "That's not it." But she didn't backtrack. "I just want more," she continued. "I want to go to college. I want my own place. I want a future that feels steady." He laughed again, but there was no humor in it. "You don't even know how the world works yet." Something inside her steadied at that. "I do," she said. "I know how this works." Silence stretched between them. He stepped closer, lowering his voice the way he always did when he wanted her to bend. "You're overthinking this. You always do. Just come with me tonight. We'll talk about it tomorrow." Tomorrow. She thought of all the tomorrows that had quietly become years. She took a small step back. "No," she said. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it was firm. His expression hardened. "So that's it?" She nodded, even though her chest ached. "I think it has to be." He shook his head, muttering something under his breath. "You'll regret this." Maybe she would. But as he turned and walked away, she felt something unexpected rise up beneath the fear. Relief. Her hands trembled, but she stood where she was until he disappeared into the crowd. For the first time, she hadn't tried to rescue him. She had chosen herself. And as she got into her car, keys shaking slightly in her grip, she understood something that would take her decades to fully appreciate. Freedom didn't arrive all at once. It began with a single terrifying no. Miley left alone and headed home, The house smelled the same lemon cleaning solution. The house was always perfect. Cigarette smoke buried under lemon cleaner, something sour that never quite went away no matter how often the windows were opened. She stepped inside and felt herself shrink without meaning to. Her mother was lying on her bed already drinking. It wasn't even dark outside yet. The bottle sat next to her closet where she always hid it. "Well," her mother said without looking up, "you're home early." A graduation program was on the table, folded and unfolded so many times it was soft as cloth. "Where's your boyfriend?" her mother asked, finally lifting her eyes. The words landed like they always did, short, casual, and practiced. "I ended it." Her mother laughed, a short barking sound. "Sure you did." She felt that familiar heat rise in her chest, the urge to explain, to prove, to justify. Instead, she said, "I'm going to college." That got her attention. Her mother sat up suddenly and quickly. "You're what?" "I want to go to college and get a degree." Her mother stared at her as if she were speaking a language she'd invented on the spot. "With what money?" "I'll work," Emily said. "I'll figure it out." Her mother shook her head slowly, lips tightening. "You don't live in the real world." Something in her snapped, not loudly, but cleanly. "I live in this one," she said, "and I can't stay here anymore." There it was, the truth they never spoke aloud. Her mother stood unsteady. "Oh, so now you're too good for this house for me?" "That's not what I said." "It's exactly what you said," her mother shot back. "You think you're going to run off and everything will magically get better?" "I think," she said carefully, "that staying is making things worse." The silence that followed was dangerous. Her mother's voice dropped, cold and precise. "You'll fail." The words were quiet, but they carried decades of rehearsal. "You always do," her mother continued. "You don't stick to anything. You get scared. You come crawling back." Her throat tightened. This was the moment that had ended her before, the moment she had folded, apologized, promised not to leave. She felt the weight of all those futures pressing in, the one she knew too well and the fragile new one trying to take shape. "I might fail," she said. Her mother blinked. "But I won't stay," she added. Her mother scoffed. "You won't last a month." She picked up her bag. "Maybe," she said, "but it won't be because I didn't try." Her mother's face twisted, anger and fear colliding. "Don't come running back to me when this falls apart." She paused at the door. "I won't," she said. The door closed behind her with a final, ordinary click. Outside, the air felt thinner, sharper, like it might hurt to breathe it, but also like it might finally be hers. Her hands were shaking again, but she didn't turn back. And for the first time, the house didn't call her name as she walked away. Her studio apartment was smaller than she had imagined it would. One room, one narrow window, a kitchen that was really just a wall with a stove and a sink. The refrigerator hummed loudly, as if unsure of itself. Emily closed the door behind her and stood still. No shouting followed, no footsteps, no voice calling her back to explain herself. The silence felt enormous. She set her bag down slowly, like she was afraid of making a sound that might undo everything. The floor creaked under her weight, unfamiliar but solid. She ran her hand along the back of the couch she'd bought secondhand, then along the chipped edge of the table. It was all hers. That thought made her chest tighten. She sat on the floor, back against the wall, knees pulled close. The evening light slanted in through the window, dust floating lazily in the air like it had nowhere else to be. For the first time there was no one to anticipate, no moods to manage, no footsteps to interpret, no silence waiting to explode. And yet, her breath caught. What if her mother was right? What if she failed? The fear crept in quietly, wrapping itself around her ribs. The world felt very large now, too large. Responsibility pressed in from all sides, heavy and real. She closed her eyes. You chose this, she reminded herself. Not because it was easy, not because it was guaranteed, but because staying had been slowly erasing hers. She stood and opened the small window. Night air slipped in, cool and clean, carrying the distant sounds of other lives continuing on. Someone laughed somewhere below. A car passed. A radio played softly in the distance. She lay down on the mattress she'd pushed into the corner, staring up at the unfamiliar ceiling. Her heart raced. Her hands trembled. But beneath the fear, something else lived. Freedom, fragile, new, terrifying, and unmistakably real. She slept lightly, waking often, each time reminding herself where she was and why, and each time she stayed. The zipper resisted for just a moment before loosening. She stepped out of her tent, sweater pulled close, the night air brushing her skin with a familiarity that felt grounding now. The campfire glowed patiently. Her friends were there exactly as she'd left them, mugs in hand, voices low, laughter soft and unforced. Someone poked at the fire. Someone else leaned back, watching sparks drift upward. "Find your sweater?" Carol asked. "Yes," she said, and meant more than the words aloud. She sat down slowly, feeling the earth beneath her, solid and real. The fire warmed her knees. The forest stood quietly around them, holding everything without asking questions. For a moment, confused, she wondered if she should say something. If she should tell them about the graduation ceremony, the house, the apartment, the no that had changed everything. But the confusion lingered, soft and dreamlike. So she didn't. When the conversation drifted again to the question, if you could go back, she listened this time without answering right away. The others spoke easily. Weddings, babies, summers long gone. When they looked to her, she smiled into the fire. "I don't think I would," she said. They turned toward her. "I used to think I would," she continued. "I used to wish I could change everything." Emily paused, choosing honesty over explanation. "But I think I needed to become who I am now to understand what mattered then." No one argued. They didn't need to. Later, lying awake in her tent, she let the night settle around her. The forest breathed. The fire crackled softly in the distance. Had she gone back? Had she dreamed it? She didn't know. What she did know was this: she felt different, stronger in the places where she'd once bent, quieter where she'd once apologized, steadier where she'd once stayed. Morning would come, life would continue, and this time, whatever time it was, she would meet it standing. We spend so much of our lives wishing we could go back to a moment before a wrong turn, before a yes we should have questioned, before a silence that cost us years. We imagine that if we could stand there again, young, unscarred, full of possibility, we would do everything differently. But time doesn't work that way. It doesn't offer us do-overs. It offers us something quieter and far more powerful: perspective, courage that grows slowly, strength earned one difficult choice at a time, a voice that learns how to say no and how to stay. Maybe the miracle isn't going back at all. Maybe it's realizing that the woman we needed to become was the one capable of finally standing up. And when we sit around the fire, years later, asking ourselves when we would return to, the answer is this moment, right now, because this is where we finally mattered. And this is where we choose ourselves. Thank you for listening to The Night the Fire Remembered. We hope you enjoyed this story. If you'd like to hear more upcoming audiobooks like this one, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support helps these stories continue.